Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Professor Mai Der Vang, and I have the honor of introducing our next reader, Taylor Seals. Taylor, right there. When you step into a poem by Taylor Seals, you step into a childhood that was once filled with chords, crescendos, choiring, and crooning vowels among soprano-lit lullabies. You step into a home clouded by memories of empty dial tones, picture frames, old letters, and a tattered Mickey Mouse duffel bag, alongside the more difficult recollections of departures and separations. You step into the loneliness incurred as a result of a mother who goes and is gone, seemingly no longer present in the speaker's life, and yet ever present in all ways. You step into flashbacks of mother and the ghost of her leaving, echoing against the emotional turmoil endured by the children who stay behind. And then you step into the speaker's voided sense of connection to the maternal, to any notion of matral power as it becomes matral loneliness. And from there, you begin the baby step process of relearning the meaning of mother. Through stunning, evocative language combining poetic craft with emotional heft, Taylor's poems offer poignant examinations of a speaker growing up in a precarious home where a difficult and treasured love abounds, and where an unmothered relationship leaves the speaker in a continual state of questioning and longing. The poems in Taylor's thesis titled reMothering shimmer with linguistic radiance while searching for a disappeared maternal nearness, a lost childhood. That time with a fever, that time when she left after the divorce, that time learning how to do hair with sister, that time of punishment, mother's altoing acoustics throughout the house. And what a child misses most, as depicted in one of the poems, is to hear their name called by mama. Across the manuscript are poems in varied forms that demonstrate the range of Taylor's craft. From a visual piece in grid structure, examining modes of expression through multiple points of view, to a redacted poem depicting a conversation between mother and speaker, to a longer sequence that revisits a grandmother's affection, offered in a most vulnerable moment. Taylor, this is life-changing poetry that reaches into some of the hardest parts of who we are, where we come from, and who made us. And you have done that with grace and courage. Please help me welcome Taylor Seals. I have so many thanks to give for being up here right now. I'm going to start with Mai Der, of course, who I met in an empty classroom over Zoom about 5 years ago. And then at the end of her class, declared myself a poet. I met Bryn the same year, and it's really full circle for them to be part of my committee. And I'm so thankful for you, Brenna, for joining that too. I have a lot of peers to thank in here who are in this room too, some who aren't. And I see you guys, and I've heard you guys. I want to thank all my siblings, Darius, Dejan, Darie, Daniel, David, Kataria, Janae, for giving me so much strength to stand up here. For my nephew, for my grandmother, for my aunt, for my mother, and mothers of mothers of mothers, and daughters and sisters and aunts. I want to thank Jefferson for being a brother who sat with me in grief and over sweet treats and over lunch and over music, and has learned that not all silences are bad. And for my lover and the crowd.
I see you. Okay. Well, I don't know what else to say about my thesis that Mai Der hasn't already said. This first piece is called On Inheritance. And I don't know, it kind of came out of nowhere. So here we go. Tell me you did not disappear, that you whispered, turned prayer, frog mouth, a winged thing, like mattress throat, cheek, fertilized lung. Tell me you instead undressed in the walls, open-breasted, weathered silhouette, stayed there for days, until your ancient cervix opened, birth-stained daughter song, and you knew it was okay to river. And I'll tell you I was named River before placenta seething, some ghost thing that I know the violet of knuckles to spine, white rose grief, harvested with 2 fingers, calloused spit tips, buried and came out, drawing our blood. Both of my parents smoked, and I've never been a smoker, and I likely never will be, but there's something very comforting about secondhand smoke. This next piece is titled Filter, from the little cotton thing that you find in a cigarette. And it doesn't have to do anything with smoking, really. I just found a lot of those analogies coming up here. And it's based off a very old picture of my grandmother, my mother's mother, who looked, in the photo, she looked very young, and I could tell because she didn't have makeup on, and her hair was big and coiffed, and I think it was a sepia stained photo, but I imagine the dress red, and she looked everything like jazz. Filter. Did you ever leave that light across frayed edges some decades ago? Take a step out, wearing that red dress into the night, hair coiffed to brow tips, gel to your forehead. I imagine you vanillaed in a smoke screen bed of cotton and ash bodies. Did you cigarette? Their mouths burned from soprano lit kisses, perfume clenching promises, gray drag filling the salt of their mouth. Have you ever pianoed full hips against the soft of a neon lover? Dance feet, arms to rhythm, on stretched lips, fluorescent eyes looking to you on stage. Did you ever dream? I imagine you, decades closer, mother tired, a lullaby of empty, dusty stage splintered croon in your daughter's ear. Tobacco bitter chords, then only good for dissonant orders into the crescendo of my mama's stargaze. Did you ever let her leave that fevered house? See her step out into jagged golden across threshold. I imagine her swaying among seasoned bodies, troubled and alto wishes. Have you ever seen her stage? Spotlights, as blinding as your eyes some decades ago. Mama always imagined you up there with her. I have a series that is sort of a lighthouse or a through line in my thesis titled This Is How She Mothers. And it's kind of what I've extracted from a longer prose piece and just turned it into a bite-sized poem. And it's just of a memory of visiting my grandmother's house very, very, very young. I'm a military brat, so we grew up in Germany. So it would be very, very rare when my parents would take their 5, 6, 7, 8 kids all the way back to California to visit family. There was so much activity in that house on both the outside and in, and I like having it as a place to come back to. There are 5 parts here, and so I'm just going to start with saying this is how she mothers, and then part 2, 3, and so on. This is how she mothers, part 1. Lungs conduct how air weaves through your body's landscapes. And 12 years later, Mama returns still before the orange of streetlights. And outside, the house is a wilted shadow with roof drooped like a rain-hunched flower. And the front yard is a quilt of stiff grass stitched around sun-paled playsets, and the ghost of 2 rotting wooden rocking chairs frame the doorway she leaves open. And inside is the stain of 2 couches, a knee knocked length apart. A tall lamp buzzes in the corner, and the small television plays Grandpa Fred's desaturated westerns. And I wonder how this can be called home. And the AC cloys stale as cigar butts and water mold, and I cannot tell what color the carpet used to be, and it wriggles under my feet. This next poem is called The Fever. The fever comes like most do, gradual over late night before atomizing into all directions of the body at once, head aching into bones 13 years old, the sickest I have ever been. Mama watches me vibrate on the bathroom floor, the look of her eyes hazel with exhaustion, moon face sharpened by buzzing yellow. Against the wet sink, one hand irons her nightgown, faded orange of it frayed at edges, still trying to heat the waves of her mother who wore it before her. Stop rubbing your face against the toilet seat, Tay. Scattered night of moments, breaking surface is memory. Surface memory is a hand palming underwater. Mama lets me rest on the cold side of their bed, crawling. Sleep comes in fitful murmurs. She makes me swallow bitter syrups, softly humming between the space of us. When she wakes me up, whispering, follow me, patient, into the kitchen, blurred with cold sweat, heavy eyelids, a small cup pressed to my bottom lip. And the heady sting of Patron crawls across gums, cheek, and down throat, spreading through chest. Mama fixes my grimace with a quick shove of a salted lime cut and bite until suddenly vision is no longer carousel, her alto less kaleidoscope, and face waterfalling in relief as clarity brings light back into mine. Back upstairs, Mama says, you can still sleep here. And underneath violet sunrise, we settle, shrink into wide mattress, warm on both sides. Part 2. From the air, they suck and multiply oxygen in cage of your ribs and evenly divide the release of carbon dioxide. And Mama is a mirror of Grandma Linda, and I can tell she was once beautiful in the rose bruise outline of their shared lips and top curved like an arrow perfectly taut toward yesterday. And her silver hair is grayer in some patches, and their light skin is a matrix of old scars, yet I still know it is soft. And the faded sage of her eyes holds something to me like the fossil of a dream, a clouded amber, and the whisper of a woman who once had the world in her throat. And somewhere the jazz of her youth left her, and some man trapped her with too many kids and too much dust. In my workshops as of recently, or from my classes last semester, people have realized I've gotten really obsessed with mangoes. And I even changed the little Instagram emoji bio to it. And this poem is kind of because of that. Dark chocolate covered mangoes. Whatever you want from me, I'm giving you everything. I'm your baby tonight. I've been dreaming somewhere in the cold front seat between the long of Lancaster and Henderson. My grandmother, Laretha, keeps one hand on the wheel and the other digging through a bag of dark chocolate covered mangoes. And I'm looking at the disappearing beside me and the way green gives to dust. indigo to bird, early saffron to splitting wind, and we have been listening, and we have re-listened to Whitney's I'm Your Baby Tonight enough for me to start ad-libbing the lyrics. I know she looks ahead with her daughter as our destination, doesn't notice the mothering of her foot, pressing 101 miles down. Years ago, her mother left humid child state, and I wonder what was playing when great-grandma Lucille repoured her children hot into California. Grandma Laretha passes me a raisined, red nail polish, dark chocolate-covered mango, some of it already soft with her fingerprints. I stuff sweet into mouth, resaturate, and think wet of its sticky sister juicing my arm. Fruitful, time wisens when she says, Mama never prepared me for this body and all our openings and givings. And I crimson sad when two older cousins take her to the store with nearly lint-lined pocket to buy her first menstrual pads, new underwear, maybe my doll too. Try not to feel guilty remembering red and white pants, an early pickup, and Mama in the other room, and Mama celebrating on the phone in the other room, like it meant I was ready to be someone's woman. At 13 years, four-legged in the warming front seat, we palm, boom sag under navel, she big, we call it, with slither stopping, dark chocolate-covered mangoes airing the car, and Whitney singing that song again, whatever you want from me, giving you everything. I'm your baby tonight. This is my title poem, reMothering, excuse me. And I've written it and read it a couple of times, and the meaning has changed over time with the loss of my little sister, Janae, last year, who succumbed to her heart condition. So it initially started with me just remembering this experience of seeing my mother lose her mother and sort of trying to figure out what you do at 9 or 10 to piece her back together. And the meaning has changed over time. So, reMothering. Mama is a vessel of grief. We know there is loss as she crashes through the hallway, and a photo of me, cloudy cheeked and drooly lipped, crashes with her, sprinting the floor. There is loss in the way Mama sings, outdoing the acoustic echoes of our small house, every note crashing, colliding into staggered staccatos, and I begin to wonder what it means to mother. Our small house cannot hold her voice, nor cradle anguish, molding fist in the bed of our stomachs, and I ask, how to Mama again, as her name becomes an unanswered prayer in the dark room. Her bed, gentle altar, sacred with unwashed sheets, and I do best to fill Mama with warm trebles, make room for her name to alight, ricochet back into her throat, come up again in the soprano lilt of something like her mother's voice. I do best to mother the way she needs, dry or warm, the day's clean sheets until Mama is ready to scab over, and something like a mother's voice, lullaby-lipped and choir-tongued, rises with her. The diaphragm, break 3. The diaphragm, that hollowed ache you feel beneath your lungs, clenches and balloons with empty space to hum back into your chest. And I know this much already when the record scratch of her voice shatters the air and she opens both arms and give grandma a hug, my babies. And I remember she smelled like incense and old clothes and something closer to the skin of her temple and roasted almonds or browned butter. And she is all I love about this place. There are uncles whose faces appear next to years of scattered phone calls, and younger cousins portal in and out of a narrow hallway, and my little brothers disappear with them, and we hear the house stretch full with the ripple of their conjoining laughs, and y'all kids better shut up now, and Grandpa Fred is a face that does not move from the television, and no, you shut the fuck up yelling at them kids, and Grandma Linda's soprano is a punch. Next one is called Lapis. Lapis. I won't talk about my father escaping into the breast of the church, static replacing unuttered timber, the press of his silence spooned into Mama's ear and staying there. Let me talk of the shattered lapis vase, constellated on our dining room floor, soon after the beat. How the swing of her arm wasn't unlike the crescent of yellow crawling through the wide of our windows. What other small violences has it witnessed tonight? How many other stars met the ground in rupture? Daughters, too. At midnight, Mama calls me to their scentless room to watch her dare the split of her skin on serrated edge, the knife pressing into an old tattoo on her calf, a watercolored butterfly surrounded by the names of all my siblings and pressing more when I cry. The crown of her hair peeks up with no bonnet on. Her sleeve of borrowed tank top saddens off one shoulder, wrinkles in her pajama pants. My small hand slippery on the doorknob as she keeps me away with the thunder of her voice. Lord, let me understand the fragmented woman who begged me to see her blood never surface. Let me remind her heart sits in the same place as mine. That shadowing in plain is just as easy as my father made it. Would that have been better for you, for us? Then would we be on the same sides of the world? Mama raised me gutted fist, tooth jagged and red welted. She raised me old gospel, full bellied and hidden love letters. She is still life, slowly melting out of you as I close the door and cross the few steps from the hallway back into the sag of my bed. I forget my pale pink walls in the dark, tuck a prayer of my hands between ear and pillow, gaze at moonrise on the floor from a curtainless window, hoping I wouldn't find Mama gone and bleeding from the vowels of our names in mourning. As the bruised night sank into violet morning, I hear my father key his way into the house. The stuttered crunch of lapis under heavy soles, finally fall asleep to the slap of Mama's feet, reaching. Gonna be parts 4 and 5. The caught half of oxygen streams through microscopic pearls constellated on each inhale before it is allowed back into your blood. An uncle with a dime mole under his left eye, and those kids gonna get the belt if you don't quit all that noise. And my mama, I'm gonna beat your ass if you touch my kids in the air and hear statics. And Linda, and don't y'all think y'all too grown to get y'all ass beat anymore, and deflates as birds do under storm. And I know all these cues. The body is its own museum of collapsing stars waiting to release. And somewhere in the crescendo of their voices, I know what flight is and prickly familiar dissonance, and like the ashes in my gut and scar on my neck and the sting in my cheek. And I remember hiding myself small behind the couch, maybe from a belt or knifed word, not meant for me, scared, in trouble for nothing. And when Grandma Linda notices, so does everybody else. Her laugh comes from the belly, makes heat of all her body, and she says, "Girl, what you all scary for?" This next one is called Matrophobia, and it's titled after Tracy Brimhall's of the same name in her collection, Love Prodigal. And what I really love about the collection and just Tracy Brimhall herself is how she picks words up from the ground or unburies words and gives them new meaning. So Matrophobia. My sister tells me she hasn't showered in 3 days, that her house smells like the trash she keeps forgetting to take out, dishes and floors she can't bring herself to clean. My nephew, 3 years, tells her of monsters under his bed, and she remembers Mama's hand crossing in olive, the drip of it down our foreheads, sloped nose, Mojave-bitten lips. Over FaceTime, she doesn't look at me as she confesses her drinking. I bought the bottle and its repeat, open for the sun, emptied not long after she tucks her son under the spider red blue of his sheets. Last week, we laughed after she said our mama wouldn't be saved. She won't go to hell. And in the same breath, we whisper over our shared fear of blood concentrated in our veins. Becoming our mama is worse, sister says, than her son's father holding a gun to her head, than the 8 minutes of proof for a case dismissed, than the one she now carries and tries not to reach for every time the screen door rattles with the wind. Yesterday, I told her I'm trying to learn how to close distances. Mama taught us love has no forgiveness, but we reach for the olive branch anyway, trace the scratch of split skin, scars we were told to give each other. And when my nephew interrupts our apologies with another hello, my sister says she hasn't sat down to color or blow bubbles with him in weeks. Not right now, Mars. Mommy's tired. I know, he says. We teethe over equations of blood concentration and dilution, wondering if the bone is safe too. And I say, maybe we have inherited natural loneliness in the gap of her throat. But before sister can answer, his sand dollar hand familiars the curl of her chin, guiding her eyes to him. She knows to open arms, tuck him warm at ear and neck. And in the press of their hearts, I feel something inherited cave away from us and know we are survivable. This second to last poem is called Mai Der Vang, and it was secretly made with my sister, secretly because she didn't know that I made it until I showed it to her this morning because I was too excited. After my sister passed, I think, the natural thing to do as grief is to either sit about it or write about it. My sister wrote about it sooner than I did, and we have a shared note that I looked at and looked at and looked at, and I didn't know what to do with. And I wrote something and I didn't like it anymore. Idlewild is the title of my older sister Kataria's favorite movie from 2006 with Andre 3000. And then there's this one song in that movie called She Lives in My Lap, which, spoiler alert, it came out in 2006. Andre 3000 sings while getting his lover ready for a funeral because he's a mortician. And this poem sort of is a reflection of that moment, because though my older sister wasn't there and wasn't able to be there for my little sister's funeral, she was the one that paid for everything and got her dress and sat with her alone in the chapel. And the other point of view here for me is just the fear of going and seeing her for her goodbye. Anyway, it's called Idlewild with Kataria Deadwalder, my sister, for Nay. I walked into the chapel unprepared to stand at the edge of her quiet. When grief arrived, she was still as oil on canvas, long-legged, baby sister-footed, honey-mouthed, and tender-arteried. When I readied her in tiara and bow, still struggled to put her shoes on, something like her laughter rippled from my life and scattered as children's toys do to the floor. In the left of your small, wires mixed, overfilled, and your heart buoyed out of your chest for more room, too big for one life to hold. You have lived through questions about passing I'm still too afraid to know the answers to. And it is selfish to thank you for being braver than we are. Though we know to be absent from the body is to be present with the divine, what we're trying to say is that this is not an elegy, but a poem that knows what it meant to be loved by you, what it means to love you. With doves released above your head, already knowing the way home. And this last poem is called Breathwork. And it starts with a quote, 18 Tell me about the sound of your voice from Barbara Jane Reyes. Breathmark. The same as cigarette smoke, cool enough to scratch open throat and stay there, like burnt champagne fizzed out on the end of my Grandma Linda's parlor croon, sharpened through the rhythm of Mama's teeth, heavy olive oil, waxing tongue, the same lick of vinegar, weathering the peel of fat lips, like the coals of dying fire, spatchcocking breastbone with a vowel weight, sweet coagulate blood bend, all the blues tightening between the mother of our shared breaths. Thank you.